politics. I agree with the president. We will treat them humanely while they're here, and then we should expeditiously return them to their country of origin. So again, it's not about politics. Talk to governors of both parties. Governor Hickenlooper of Colorado, Democrat, he's expressing the same concerns I am.
President Obama may be trying to dodge what's happening on the southwestern border, but events overseas have left him no place to hide in dealing with Russia and the Middle East. Elizabeth Warren leaves no indication she'll run for president, but that won't stop the rumble mill from moving forward. And governors are now standing up to the administration over the flood of illegals coming into the country and their states. We have that and so much more. Veteran political commentator Dick Morris joins us today. Dick, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Welcome aboard.
Good to see you, Ed. How are you doing?
Excellent. And here comes a Gallup poll that is not going to be seen as excellent for the president right now. Immigration now virtually ties dissatisfaction with the government at 16%. The primary issue Americans think of when asked to name the country's top problem. We should point out that it has now gone overall to 17% this month, up from 5% in June. And the governors are talking back to the president right now. Not what they want to hear.
Well, I think it's important for us to understand that the immigrant children have no constitutional rights, none. The Constitution explicitly gives Congress total control over immigration and naturalization. The rights that they have to a hearing or to an attorney are all derived by statute, and what was created by statute can be repealed by statute. So I think that now you have three distinct camps emerging on Capitol Hill. The Republicans, like me, who say catch them and ship them right back. Literally, don't ingest them at all. Don't have immigration courts, don't have judges, just go from apprehension to airplane on the tarmac, maybe with a night over in between with a decent meal. Then you have the administration, which is saying, well, let's ingest them. Let's take them into the immigration process. Maybe let's give them lawyers, but let's have more judges and speed it up so it goes faster. And then you have the Democrats who say, we don't want them to be thrown out at all. We want them to stay here. And we want to welcome them, treat them humanely. We might, if the normal course of events leads to a deportation order and they happen to get deported, okay. But we're not unhappy with only 2 or 3% being sent back. Now, this fissure between the Democrats and the president really is leaving the Democratic senators who are up for re-election out there with no cover. They're out there vulnerable because when Obama's sending up this funding bill, the Republicans are going to say, we'll give you the money, a little less, but we won't give it to you unless you repeal the statutory protections these kids have so that we can send them right back. And at that point, the Senate Democrats will say, no, we don't want to send them right back. And that could wipe them out in the midterm elections.
The question now, and I bring this up as far as governors are concerned, because there are now more governors who are saying, do not send the children to our state. Dick, in your opinion, how effective will these words from the governors be in going up the chain here and forcing some kind of change or forcing the president to do something?
Well, I think he's probably going to favor blue states with the immigrants, where the governors aren't so objecting. I don't think the governors will legally be able to stop it. But I do think the feeling in the country of these children being assimilated into the heartland of the U.S. and being placed there all over the country really is going to kindle outrage. The interesting thing about this story, it is not only so much the idea of them coming in and their ultimate fate. It's that it's a gift that keeps on giving. Every time there's a murder, and there just was a horrible one by a Honduran illegal immigrant. There was a rape in Philadelphia the other day. This resort that they're putting people in that, you know, has a swimming pool and a tennis court. There was testimony yesterday in Congress. The feds say it costs up to $1,000 a night to accommodate these kids per kid. All of those stories will have legs and ultimately will come to dominate the debate. This is in its own way a little bit like health care reform, a gift that keeps on giving.
Dick, why haven't people focused on the fact that here in America we have kids who don't eat every day, who don't get 3 meals a day? They don't have roofs over their head. There are people who need help here from the government themselves, and we are talking about helping kids who are coming in from another country. It would seem that that would be a good place to start. Help our people first before we are helping others.
Well, I think that's a point, and I think that the reciprocal of that is there's nothing about northern Guatemala that has the north side of Chicago beat. The crime rate, the murder rate, the death rate isn't all that different. So let's protect our own kids in our own neighborhoods first. The myth that there's such violence in Guatemala and El Salvador and Honduras that they all have to leave is really a myth. I've done a bunch of campaigns in Guatemala and in El Salvador and in Honduras, and those countries right now are safer than they've normally been. There's no civil war going on. There was for 30 or 40 years. There are no death squads. There are no guerrilla bands invading villages. The idea that these kids are fleeing violence is really irrational. The other thing is the UN is very close to moving in here and saying these aren't immigrants, these are refugees. And they're not seeking legal status, they're seeking asylum. And under international law, United States, you're obliged to give it to them, whatever you say.
All right, let's move on now and pivot to Elizabeth Warren here. You mentioned the word myth a moment ago. There are those people who say it's all a myth that Elizabeth Warren actually wants to become president. It certainly seems to some people that even though she says it, there's still going to be that groundswell here, and Hillary Clinton could indeed have a problem.
Well, you know, is it a myth that her PAC has raised $1 million and is giving out money to like-minded Democrats around the country? There's a draft Warren committee that was set up, Ready for Warren, they call it. She's doing a book tour. We all know about Obama's and Hillary's book tours and what ends up at the end of them. I think I think it's very likely that Warren will run, especially given Ed Klein's indication in his new book, Blood Feud, that Obama, Michelle Obama, and Barack and Valerie Jarrett are urging her to run and promising financial and organizational support.
In an article that you wrote recently, you talked about the mistake that Hillary Clinton made in 2008 that she is repeating right now. What is that?
She is fighting the next election before she wins the first one. In 2008, she just assumed she'd get the nomination. So she took conservative positions on the war in Iraq, on the Patriot Act. She sat on the Armed Services Committee. And then Obama challenged her as a hawk, and the Democrats bolted and abandoned her and supported Obama. Now she's taking a hard line on returning the children in Central America. She criticizes Obama as a president who paints a beautiful vision but can't follow through. Those are her words. She talks about how we needed a harder line in the Middle East and to arm the insurgents in Syria. Those are all positions to distancing herself from the president that make sense in the November election when you have a guy with 40% popularity on your tail. But in a primary election where it's 80% popularity, that's nuts.
All right, I got about 2 minutes left here. The president had to come out and make a couple of forceful statements, at least to him and to others. It was very forceful regarding foreign policy here. His sanctions against Russia, going after the oil and banking core. He's actually going after a lot of Putin's buddies here in the gas issue as well, and in the gas companies as well. In your opinion, was this enough teeth? Did he do what he had to do at this time?
No, it's ridiculous. He added maybe a dozen more people to the list of people that couldn't come to the U.S. for cancer operations or something, you know, or as tourists. What is needed is, number one, put the missiles in Poland and in the Czech Republic like we were planning to. Number two, increase dramatically our exports of natural gas to Europe. And number three, go with the Keystone Pipeline so that we have the natural gas to export to undercut the Russian monopoly. Those steps would have teeth, but nothing he's doing now has any teeth. And now it appears, with that horrible news item that John Bachman spoke about, that maybe a civilian airliner was mistaken for a military aircraft and downed by Russian separatists. That would be a big deal if that's true.
Yeah, we're following that story right now. It was flight MH17, which left Amsterdam at 12:14, due to arrive in Kuala Lumpur at 6:09 local time. There's footage already of a plane that is on the ground, of a large pall of smoke in a field in the area, and they're following this story right now. There still is not a whole lot of
This is
confirmation.
like the Korean.
Yes, it is.
This is like the Korean passenger liner that was shot down by the old Soviet Union.
Yes, it is. 295 people on board at the time, and they all apparently have perished at this time. Dick, I appreciate your time very much. As always, we'll look forward to talking to you again next week.
Thanks, Ed.
All right. Dick Morris joining us right here on MidPoint every single week. Again, to bring you up to date on the news that we are following here right now. And again, it is constantly changing. Dick mentioned it. Let me bring it up to you again. Flight MH17, a Malaysian plane that has crashed on the Ukraine-Russian border. There is still not a lot of actual verifiable information about what happened here. The airline company itself, Malaysian Airlines, says they have lost contact with the aircraft, which in and of itself is simply dangerous and is simply telling at this point. According to the aviation source telling Interfax, a Boeing Malaysian Airlines that was flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur began to descend about 50 kilometers before entering Russian airspace and was subsequently found burning on the ground in Ukraine. We will continue to follow this story. Next up, plenty of politicians say stupid things they want to forget, but one former elected official has said far too much, and plenty in his party wish he would just go away. It's coming up next, right here on MidPoint.